Hello, and welcome to a quick and dirty episode of You Want to Play Pathfinder. This is not my standard format or anything like that. Emily Axford hosted a new episode of NADPod, Not Another D&D Podcast, and she hosted a new episode basically talking about Pathfinder 2nd Edition. And she's one of my favorite podcasters, just generally speaking, and one of my favorite media personalities also. So her talking about my favorite game of all time, like I had to clear up some stuff. Basically, Pathfinder is my favorite game of all time. It's better than Bloodborne, better than Banjo-Kazooie, better than Pokemon, better than Dungeons & Dragons. And I've bought all but one of all of the major Pathfinder books. And I'm here to try to help her out with some of the stuff that she had some confusion about when she was talking about it with the guys. I remember the first thing that they had some concerns about was criticaling. Basically, in Pathfinder 2e, if you get 10 over the difficulty class, then you crit, congratulations. But they were kind of confused about whether or not nat 1s or nat 20s still affect anything. And Pathfinder 2nd Edition is absolutely in good with Dice Christ. I'm going to read directly from the book here. If you rolled a 20 on the die, a natural 20, your result is 1 degree of success better than it would be by numbers alone. If you roll a 1 on the d20, a natural 1, your degree is 1 degree worse. How about this? The DC to wrangle a dinosaur that you're fighting at this certain point is 30, and you only have a +9 to your athletics. That means if you roll a 20, the max you're going to get is a 29. That's a failure. However, if you roll a nat 20, that brings it up from a failure, boom, to a success. The reverse is also true. If you have a +25 to some skill from all of your buffs and your other bonuses and all your friends are helping you and all this different stuff, you have a bonus of 20. But you still roll a natural 1? You probably succeeded the roll, but that's a nat 1. That's a failure. Another thing they seemed to have some confusion about was what condition values are. I'm just going to read this from the book as well. Some conditions have a numerical value called a condition value, indicated by a numeral following the condition. This value conveys the severity of a condition, and such conditions often give you a bonus or penalty equal to the value. These values can often be reduced by skills, spells, or simply waiting. If a condition value is ever reduced to 0, the condition ends. The severity is basically what happens. So if you are frightened 1, that means a -1 to all of your DCs and ability checks. And if you're frightened 2, that's a -2. Frightened 3, and I think you can only ever get to frightened 4. Depending on what the value is after the condition. Like sometimes there's some extra things that happen. For example, if you're unconscious, that's not a numerical value after that. But if you're dying, that can get a value at the end of it. And every round you fail I guess it is a death save, you get more added to that value. And if you're ever dying 4, that's it. You're dead. Goodbye. Another one of the questions was theater of the mind, and yeah, there's a lot of tactics rules in here. The game is never going to make you use a board or anything like that. Like, you can know that if one guy is on the other end, another guy's on the other end, y'all are flanking him, and he's flat-footed now. You can just keep in mind that you might have to use 2 movement actions to get to him, but if you're particularly fast, maybe 1, I don't know. Theater of the mind is actually pretty easy to keep track of, and most of the encounters that I play with are fully theater of the mind. And quite frankly, having a board doesn't help too much, especially if you have a sniper who can shoot things from up to 120 feet out, given bonuses, or he's only given like a -2 penalty if he goes 280 feet. So what does it matter? He's just going to snipe from there. And there's no board, no viable board for anybody's kitchen table that's going to be able to facilitate somebody sniping from 300 yards away. You guys also seem to have some confusion about caster blasters and half casters, and don't worry, I'm here to help you out. First of all, if you want to be a spellcaster that still does a bunch of blasting, there's a lot for you. So generally speaking, when somebody new to a game is going to make a spellcaster, they're going to go with a wizard. That's kind of your main guy. Spellcaster? It's a wizard. And what a lot of people seem to be upset by is the fact that a level 1 wizard only has 2 spell slots. 2 spell slots isn't a lot, and it doesn't go up by a lot either. A level 5 wizard has 8 spell slots total. That's the whole deal. But the thing is, you have so many cantrips. Firstly, the wizard gets 5 cantrips at level 1, and cantrips are nothing to joke about. Electric Arc is a cantrip. Let me read that to you. Electric Arc, cantrip 1, targets 1 or 2 creatures. An arc of lightning leaps from one target to another. You deal electricity damage equal to 1d4 plus your spellcasting modifier. It's just a basic reflex save on this. You don't even roll. 1d4 plus your spellcasting is tantamount to a rogue's dagger. And the fact that it's a 2-action spell that you can still target 2 creatures with means for action economy, it's fantastic. But while there are definitely a lot of good cantrips for a good wizard to be a blasting spellcaster, there's nobody better than the Psychic from the Dark Archive. The Psychic is an intelligence or charisma spellcaster that gets way more cantrips than anybody else. You have 4 different subconscious minds to choose from and 6 different conscious minds to choose from. So there's a whole lot of choice here. But even beyond that, the Psychic gets the ability to amp some of their cantrips. For example, there's a pretty common cantrip from the first book called Telekinetic Projectile, where basically you use your mind to throw an object at the thing you're fighting, and it can do slashing, piercing, or bludgeoning damage depending on what you throw. They can amp that cantrip, and to do that, they have to use a focus point, which is kind of like a key point that spellcasters get. And if they amp this cantrip, it gets a certain ability, which is you fling objects with even more force, driving your opponents backwards with a hail of objects. On a success, you push the target 5 feet away from you, and on a critical success, you push the target 10 feet away from you, in addition to dealing double damage. So if you still want to be a blaster caster, there's nothing stopping you. It's fine. Now when it comes to half casters, it's a little bit different. We're here talking about the paladin or champion in this game, and I'm just going to go through how their spells work. So half casters in this game, basically, they don't get spell casting in a traditional way like others do. They get focus point. Focus spells are, like I alluded to earlier, really more like key point spells. They have a certain pool up to 3 of what's called a focus point, and they can spin those points on specific spells they can do. For example, for the champion, that's called a devotion spell. Their devotion to their god gives them a certain pool of points to cast spells with. The other thing that makes them a little bit different from other martials is their reactions. Champions have a certain reaction depending on what their alignment is, to be able to help their friends out in battle. The lawful good champion, or paladin, gets the retributive strike reaction. Trigger, an enemy damages your ally, and both are within 15 feet of you. You protect your ally and strike your foe. The ally gains resistance to all damage against the triggering damage equal to 2 plus your level. If the foe is within reach, make a melee strike against it. So basically, you can reduce the damage that they just took and use your reaction to immediately attack them for attacking your friend. Depending on what kind of champion you are, you get a different reaction. Now, I will just kind of point out, Emily didn't talk about archetypes at all, but that's kind of the multi-classing of this game, and I'll just kind of give you a short thing because it is a little bit advanced. So you know how in D&D at level 2 you can either continue down the fighter path and just take another fighter level, or you can learn how to cast spells like a wizard and take a wizard level. You're a level 1 fighter and a level 1 wizard. In Pathfinder it works a little bit differently. If you started out as a fighter, at level 2, you're a level 2 fighter now. You get all of the basic things that fighters get. However, when the time comes where you would choose your class feat from the pool of feats that you get for being a fighter, you can instead get a dedication feat, and you can use that to get the wizard dedication feat. That makes you a capable fighter, still a very good fighter, but you're learning how to be a wizard. People who have taken the wizard dedication feat just get a little spell book with 2 spells in it, and I think they get a spell slot and maybe 3 cantrips. Maybe take a look. Let me take a look real quick. All right, there's a correction there. You get a little spell book, but it only has 4 cantrips in it, 2 of which you can prepare each day. Now that is 2 actions you can just use on any of those 4 cantrips, and cantrips, like I've already said, are pretty powerful. A fighter that can cast Electric Arc whenever he wants to is insane. Thing is though, you don't really get to get all of the wizard stuff. At level 4, you can take another feat from the wizard dedication, at which point you can either start studying a specific school of magic, Or you can then go into getting basic spell casting, and it's a weaker version of basic spell casting than like a traditional wizard gets. Even if you get the level 18 wizard dedication feat, you're not going to be as powerful as a level 18 wizard. However, you could probably take one because you're a level 18 fighter. And the reverse is also true. A wizard who takes the fighter dedication is never going to be as good as a fighter, but they still have wizard spell casting. A wizard that can throw up a shield and knows how to use a sword and board is pretty valuable. And this goes for every class in the game, even all the weird ones that Emily listed in that episode. However, archetypes go beyond that. This is the Advanced Player's Guide that introduced the Investigator, the Swashbuckler, the Witch, and the Oracle. There we go. It also introduced over 40 archetypes. Archetypes that are not at all attached to any class. There's such things in here like the Assassin. This is an archetype that's really good at sneaking, following people, and poisoning people's food without them noticing. There's the Herbalist. This is a special kind of healer that doesn't use like medical tools. They go off and find herbs and fungi that help them out in their healing of people. There's also the Vigilante, which gives you a whole costume and secret identity. You get a costume that when you wear it, it's a 20+ year deception modifier to figure out that it's you. There's the Martial Artist. You can add this to a class to give them the ability to drop into different stances that have different like mechanical differences in how you hit people. And then, of course, probably most practical is the Medic. Again, any class can take this if they're trained in medicine. And yeah, they have to be trained in medicine and also have the battle medicine feat, which gives you the ability to heal people in battle. But if you do that, then your healing gets even better. And you know, he's the healer. You don't have to know healing magic to be the healer for the party. That was supposed to be the half-caster section. I'm sorry, I got way sidetracked there. I remember Caldwell, one of the people who have DM'd on the podcast, was really confused about how a more complex game can be even easier when it comes to homebrewing. But that's what this book is for. There's so many different formats for you to make your own rules up. The biggest chapter in this book is the Tools chapter, and it gives you entire paragraphs and tables on how to make your own creatures, your own drugs, your own afflictions. It's got the basic strike damage for characters of this level, whether they're extreme, high, moderate, or low. It has the DCs and stealth DCs for different traps that you could put in your game and make them yourself. There's a whole D100 item table of item quirks that you could put on any magical item or non-magical item that you find. The subsystems chapter gives you entire tools on how to build settlements and nations, setting up 1v1 duels, and how the initiative is different. Tables on how to build vehicles. And then after that, there's the variant rules chapter, which give you entire rules on variants and how they should work, on like how alignment could be different, how leveling up could be different, a stamina system for health to make it work more like D&D 5e. And finally, I just wanted to talk briefly about Advantage. Advantage does exist in Pathfinder 2e. It's under a different name. It's called a fortune effect. Fortune effects are most common when you're talking about the Fae, and there's a lot of that in the Secrets of Magic book. But for the most part, unless you were born under Fae or you being influenced by the Fae, you're typically not going to roll twice and take the higher number. The spell True Strike works that way. True Strike works essentially how it does in Dungeons & Dragons, except it's a single action, and except that it's a single action. But that's everything. Thank you, Emily, for showing them Pathfinder. And while I love a couple of Pathfinder podcasts, actual play, you guys are my favorite actual play podcast. And if you guys started playing my actual favorite game, that would mean the world to me. And to anybody anticipating the Sonic the Hedgehog episode, which I don't think anybody is, don't worry, that's coming up next. It's just that this was going to be an easier thing to make it quicker, and I was going to be able to get it out sooner because I really, really, really want to get that out before the next episode of NADPOD. With that, we are the youth of the nation. We are the youth of the nation.